In today's video, we're going to be going over some warriors from the ring who are not as good as their reputation suggests. In other words, boxers who are supposed to be good, but in reality are actually garbage. Let us know who you think will make the list in the comments right now and see if you get any right. And stick around until the end because you are not going to want to miss a second of this list. With that being said, let's get ready to rumble. Let me preface this pick by saying by no means do I think Logan Paul is supposed to be a great boxer, but I do think that he believes that he is. I think Logan Paul not only believes that he is good for branding and growing the sport, which he arguably is, but I think that he thinks he's actually going to become a great boxer, which is a ludicrous thought. I do not think there's any chance that Logan Paul will ever find himself among the greats in boxing history. In my opinion, he's one of the worst boxers. Yes, Logan Paul got into fantastic shape and trained very hard for his shot at turning into a pro boxer, but he has yet to impress anyone with an actual fight. His fight with fellow YouTuber KSI back in 2019 was clearly a publicity stunt and was not a boxing match worth watching for fans of traditional boxing, which would include sound defense and tactical offense. Paul versus KSI was two wannabe clowns taunting each other on stage for a cash payout regardless of the outcome. Logan Paul's rematch with KSI was no different. The same arrogant attitude from both fighters won the day and the boys walked out millions of dollars richer. Paul's first almost real fight was against Floyd Mayweather, which ended without a winner being declared. The fight saw Paul do nothing but hug Mayweather in order to keep Mayweather's vicious hands away from his face. Because if Mayweather had even landed a single real punch, that would have been lights out for Paul, and we all know it. I'll give Paul some credit. He did survive for the entirety of the match, with only a handful of people on the planet can say, but Paul did set the rules and pick the venue, so it does seem like the fight and possibly its outcome were discussed behind closed doors beforehand. Paul does have an upcoming chance to prove himself against former heavyweight champion of the world Mike Tyson. Will beating Mike Tyson be enough to prove to the boxing world that he is a legitimate boxer? The answer should be no, because Tyson will absolutely put Logan Paul in a coffin. Tyson is the type to win by knockout, and if this fight goes the distance, there's absolutely no way that Paul comes out the winner. He either gets knocked out or he loses in decision. Why? Because Logan Paul's a bad boxer, plain and simple. Speaking of the brothers of buffoonery, Jake Paul is equally as terrible of a boxer as his brother Logan Paul, if not worse. Jake Paul seemed to just jump on the boxing train with his brother because these boys do anything together. Whether it's annoying people on the internet with stupid stunts or fist fighting for money, these clowns are two peas in a pod, and their poor boxing skills are no exception. Jake Paul has only fought 5 times, and the bouts were either against amateur YouTube boxers like himself or former professional athletes. After facing a YouTuber known as Gib in his first pro bout, he decided to fight former NBA star Nate Robinson. While Paul thought this fight would earn him some legitimate boxing respect, it actually had the total opposite effect. People saw through the "I beat a former pro athlete in a boxing match" gimmick that Paul attempted to use to prove how good of a boxer he was, when everyone replied to him with the obvious counter, "What does basketball have to do with boxing?" Which is a very fair point when you also consider that Robinson was 36 at the time of the fight, putting him way past his prime, especially compared to 24-year-old Jake Paul. But since then, Jake Paul has been determined to show the world that he and his brother belong with boxing greats, which is complete and utter insanity. Jake Paul's not a good boxer, and he proved that in his bouts with Ben Askren and Tyron Woodley, which, yes, he did come out victorious, but once again, look at the competition. Askren was also 37 years old when he fought Paul, but at least his sport shares many techniques with boxing, right? The legitimacy of the match was questioned by many MMA and boxing personalities alike, saying that the fight seemed fake and was purely for cash. Not much different can be said about Paul's fight with Woodley, who was 39 at the time of his fight with Paul. The legitimacy of this battle was also put under fire, as the fight also seemed to be in the interest of money and not legitimate boxing. Jake Paul finally has the opportunity to fight somebody almost his own age on December 18, 2021, when he faces off against Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury is an up-and-coming boxer that has a real shot of turning into a legitimate boxer, and when Jake Paul steps into the ring with Fury, it'll be a time for him to finally prove what he's made of, which I can pretty much guarantee is not much of anything. Paul will fall. The absolute facade that is Jake Paul's boxing career will be finished. Speaking of the Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury fight, why don't we take a look at Jake Paul's opponent next? Tommy Fury is part of a boxing dynasty that spans all the way back to his dad John Fury and his half-brother Tyson Fury. While the two names I just mentioned are already cemented as boxing greats, Tommy Fury hasn't proved much of anything yet. Tommy is undefeated to his credit with a perfect 7-0 record, but his opponents have not been much to write home to. With a reputation like Tommy Fury's, he should be able to step into the ring with almost any combatant in the light heavyweight weight class and at least be able to hold his own. But so far, he's fought fringe opponents at best, and ironically, his fight with Jake Paul in December is almost more on the line for him than it does for Paul. Why is that? Because nobody expects Jake Paul to be a good boxer. He's a YouTuber wannabe who is just in it for the money. But Tommy Fury was raised in boxing gloves. He's trained in the best of the best since birth, and if he does anything but knock out Jake Paul in December, that might be it, which only adds to the fact that Tommy Fury is not as good as people think he is. And I say that because if he really was that good, if the opponents he had fought and defeated were actually difficult opponents for Fury, then there would be no question as to who will be crowned the victor on December 18th. And yet, there is. Boxing personalities, fighters, and judges alike are truly split down the middle on who's going to win this match. If Fury was really the amazing boxer he was supposed to be, wouldn't this fight be over before it even starts? Obviously, sport is unpredictable, and of course, anyone can win on any given day. Just ask any amazing athlete who's been the victim of an upset. But just of reputation alone, Tommy Fury is supposed to be a great boxer, and Jake Paul is supposed to be a relative nobody in the boxing community. So why is this even a debate? Because Tommy Fury is actually not that great, but what sets Fury apart from his opponent is potential. Fury has great potential to be one of the greatest boxers of this generation, but he'll have to prove himself against a real opponent first. But what if I'm wrong? The beauty of the fighters that I talked about today is that all three of them are young and they have time to prove me. And all the people just like me who think that these fighters are just not that great wrong. These guys could train their butts off and become actual fighters. I really only think that could be the case for Tommy Fury, but regardless, I've been wrong before, so take what I say with a pinch of salt. Keep your eyes glued to the boxing world to see how these guys do in their upcoming bouts. That's the video. Thank you all for watching. What other boxers do you think are supposed to be good but are actually just bad? Let us know your opinion in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like on it and subscribing to the channel for more videos like this one. It's free to you and it only takes a couple of clicks. It really helps out the channel. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.